Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Zuckerman, and welcome to the October Literary Modiin author event. 12 months ago, 366 days ago, our lives were forever changed. And I don't have to tell any of you what a crushing year it's been. And I'm sure you're with me when I say that we're all praying for a Shana Yoter Tova. And Avia, if you're on the call, thank you for that, Avia Kushner. We're praying for a better year, a year of safety, peace, health, and healing, and an end to suffering all around. One of the things that's helped me get through the past year has been beautiful Jewish and Israeli music, and beautiful Israeli and Jewish poetry, and beautiful Jewish and Israeli writing, and beautiful Israeli and Jewish initiatives around the literary and greater world. So that's partly what tonight is about, as we are waiting and praying for all of our hostages to return home, and paying tribute to those we've lost, and praying for the safety of our soldiers, and praying for an end to suffering all around. We'll hear some of these beautiful words, and I hope they will bring all of us a modicum of comfort. So just one word about what Literary Modiin is for those of you who are new here. It began about 5.5 years ago and has grown into a monthly event with authors and attendees from all over the world. This is our 54th event. And since October 7th, this is our 5th Solidarity event. So if you'd like to attend one of our regular events where we hear about new Jewish books, please join the mailing list. The format of today's event is that each writer will be speaking for about 5 minutes or so, followed by a few prayers. And if there's time, hopefully we'll open it up for people to chat a little bit. We have a large attendance today, so everyone's on mute. And if you have any technical difficulties, just put those in a private chat to me. I'll be sending around everyone's full bios and recording tomorrow, but for now, I'm just going to introduce everyone briefly. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Yonatan Berg. Yonatan is a leading Hebrew poet. He's the youngest recipient of the Yehuda Amichai Prize and a number of other national prizes. So Yonatan, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and I'm going to place you. And I'm going to share my screen, yes, with your poems, I think. And Joanna, I'll also add you if you're going to be reading in English.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. And thank you for organizing the event. And I just want to say, to begin with, that sometimes I feel that we feel, or it looks like, literature is has too of a soft voice when the voice outside is so loud. But I think it's the other way around. Literature gets the loudest voice, maybe in everyone in his own house or balcony or kitchen, but it becomes so important, so essential. It's pretty much the only thing that can overcome the loud voices outside. So I'm going to read, the first poem is about that. It's called In the Balcony. And it's from a book that called Amen, and was published 2 days in the 5th of October. So this poem never lived in the reality that gave life to this poem. This poem never lived in the place I wrote it, that is a place that doesn't know the horrors of the 7th of October, and it became a completely different poem after what happened. And you will see it from the lines, specifically from one line that I wrote maybe 2 years before, but since this book was published after the 7th of October, you can only hear one thing in it. במרפסת. פרדס מכבה את כדורי האש, ונעשה מקום של רוח בענפים וקינה. עכשיו נגמר לי מותר האדם, ומתחיל משא ומתן. רק עוד פעם אחת לאכול פירות מוזרים ברציף, תחת הקול המיסטי של יעדים לא מוכרים. אני רוצה לשמוע מנעולים נפתחים. עלינו להמשיך להכות במים ולצעוק יבשה, יבשה, להנשים את עצמנו במוזיקה ופרחים, להיות אברהם מול סדום, להתחנן על כולם, לנצח את האל בוויכוח על טבע האדם.
On the balcony, an orchard extinguishes fireballs, becomes wind through branches and lamentation. Now preeminence over beasts is depleted and negotiations begin. Just once more to eat strange fruit on the platform under the mystic voice of unfamiliar destinations. I want to hear locks opening. We must keep striking the water, shouting, dry land, to resuscitate ourselves with music and flowers, to be Abraham facing Sodom, to plead for everyone to beat God in the argument over human nature.
Thank you, Joanna. I owe so much to Joanna. She gave my poetry second life. Now I'm going to read two poems that I wrote since the 7th of October. I didn't write a lot of poems since then, maybe 10 or so. And I find that most of the poems I write are about the struggle to believe, the attempt to go through this tunnel of horrific and what we see in the media and what is streaming all day to us, and try to somehow still believe, in this case, in things that are above us. הרקיע הוא חלון שהתלכלך. בכל כוחי אני מבקש להאמין במלאכים, אבל כל מה שיורד מהשמיים הם פתיתים מפויחים. שום דבר אינו נשרף מלבד לילם של הורים המטביעים אצבעות לחות בתמונת בן. עלינו לאחוז דברים כדי לא ליפול. אני בוחר כעת באגס, כך שהאצבעות יציירו כמוקיים בעמדות הריקות של בעלי הכנף הלבנים. הם תמיד היו רגופנו שלנו שריחף כלפי מעלה, בשעה שמוזיקה הפכה ארץ חמה, והיה עלינו לנדוד. עליך לצייר מדי ערב טבע דומם, נעלי בית, צעיף, קערה ובסגסוגת של לימונים ואור. מאום לא אירע ודבר לא עומד להתרחש, היה הנזיר הזה שידע רק שבילים ביער ואת עליות הלבנה, המנונים של ברכות ומנחות. כן, הכוונה לידיך מחלצות את התמונה מידיהם, לפיח שאתה אוסף, רק בכדי להכיל את המוזיקה שהופכת את מה שאבד לבן בית.
The sky is a dirty window. With all my might, I cling to a belief in angels, but all that falls from the heavens is ash. Nothing burns except the night of parents imprinting moist fingers on a photo of their son. We hold on to things so as not to collapse. I choose a pair and my fingers sketch curves in the empty positions of the white-winged ones. They were always just our bodies floating upwards when music turned the earth warm and we had to wander. You create still life every evening. Slippers, a scarf, a bowl with an alloy of lemons and light. Nothing happened and nothing is about to happen. There is a monk who knows only forest paths and lunar risings, hymns of blessing and offerings. Yes, it is your palm resting on the hand that holds the photo, the ash you gather to feed the music that turns what was lost into one of the family.
The last poem is about what I'm trying to, the way I see poetry these days as a shepherd, as something that can gather us together and lead us through this fog. השיר הוא רואה. אני מרעיש בפעמון השיר בכדי למצוא את עצמי כמו חיה שננטשה מחום העדר. כל הבוקר ערפל נע לאט מתוכי והלאה, עד שכיסה את השדות בהם בני מינים מתרוצצים. עליי לכנס משהו, זה ברור, להוביל אותו דרך משעול ועד למקום מוקף גדרות שרצפתו רכה, תחילה זוהי ההיסטוריה. אז רק שדות הקרב ולבסוף הפחד, העדר הסורר המבולבל שפועה בכל השפות בבקשה לאמו. מאי שם מופיע עוד פעמון, ואז עוד אחד, עד שגחליליות הענבל מהבהבות בכל מקום בתוך המוח. לא איבדתי ולו חיה אחת, הן כולן שקטות, מלחכות בדממה.
The poem is a shepherd. I ring the poem loudly, looking for myself, like an animal flung out from the warmth of the herd. All morning, fog moves slowly within me and onward until it covers the fields in which my own kind run around. I must gather them, this much is clear, to lead along a path until I get to a place surrounded by woods whose floor is soft. First history, then only battlefields, and finally fear. A rebellious herd, confused, bleating please in every language. From the next field, another pealing of bells, and then another, until the bells flicker like fireflies within the mist. I didn't lose even one. They were all subdued, munching on silence.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Yonatan and Joanna. There was a question about if someone could take a screenshot of the poems. So I leave that to your discretion. Yeah. Okay. All right. No problem. Okay. So now let me introduce our next author.
Hello.
Hello. Hadassa Ben Ari is an Israeli author, educator, and content creator who spearheaded the Heroes of October 7th at the outset of Operation Iron Sword. She lives in Pardes Chana and is the mother of 7 children. So Hadassa, take it away.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So I'm Hadassa, and I'm the creator of the Heroes of October 7th project. It's look like this. We wrote the heroic stories from this current war in Israel. So the stories is a collection of stories about everyday people that saved life of others during this current war in Israel. And the stories are suitable for children at age 9 to 12. And I will read you one of the stories. It's called My Brother, the Hero. I will show to you the wonderful graphics.
One second, you're muted. You're muted. 1 second. How did that happen? Let me unmute you.
It's okay now?
Yeah.
I will start the story again.
Yeah.
Everything I've done in my life, Ben had already done because he's older, Nathan says, smiling. When we made Aliyah, it was the first time that we started something together. We studied together, worked together, and went into the army together. And suddenly there was no one to consult or ask because everything was just as new for him. In 2019, the brothers, Ben and Nathan Kalinsky, left Sao Paulo in Brazil and bought one-way ticket to Israel. Ben was 4 years older than Nathan, but they both came with the single purpose to go into the army. They made sure to step off the plane right foot first, and the first thing they did was head to eat falafel. The brothers grew up in far-off Brazil in a Zionist family. Their grandfather Moshe, 94 years old, is a Holocaust survivor, and it was from him that they learned what Zionism was. Their father played them Arik Einstein and Shlomo Artzi songs. The two brothers joined the local Tzofim squat youth movement at Kibbutz Nir Yitzchak in the Gaza envelope and lived there for a while in 2 adjoining rooms. Ben was the first to draft and was accepted into the engineering and demolition company of the Nachal Brigade. In the IDF, brothers are not allowed to serve together. So 3 months later, when Nathan drafted, he was placed in a different unit of the Nachal. On the day war broke out, Natan, who was still doing his compulsory service, was told to return immediately from his holidays leave. 2 days later, Ben joined him. He didn't wait to receive his reserve's call-up order, it's called Tzav Shmone, but simply gathered his gear and headed south. Because they both served in the Nachal Brigade, they fought in areas close to one another and occasionally managed to meet up during breaks in the field. On one of the first days of the fighting in the northern Gaza region, Ben identified a terrorist firing from within an orange house towards another IDF squad. He gathered his team, and they managed to take out the terrorist. 2 weeks later, when he was out on a break and met his brother, he told him about the incident. An orange house? Said Natan in shock. So you're the one who saved my squad? What a long road the brothers in arms traveled from Brazil to Gaza, thanks to their Zionism and their love of Israel. So this is one of the 71 stories, and the book published in Israel at the Hebrew version on April, and now is coming overseas. And I invite you to buy the book for our heroes and to our soldiers. Thank you.
Thank you, Hadassa. And you have a beautiful website also that everyone can check out some of the stories. Now let me unmute you. Okay. Now I'm going to introduce Joanna, who's going to read some of her own work. Joanna then is an essayist and literary translator of poetry and prose.
Thank you, Julie, for creating this space for us all today. I'm going to read a short piece I wrote, which bounces off an essay that was published a couple of days ago in the Washington Monthly. The Israeli poet Zelda wrote a poem entitled L'chol ish yesh shem. Each person has a name. I'd like to share with you 2 of these people. A few months ago, I was asked to help translate eulogies for members of Kibbutz Be'eri who were murdered on October 7. I was sent over 100 names. They were beautiful, many of them written by Israeli poets and writers. I was at a loss. How could I ignore one name and choose another? Finally, I chose 2, Vivian Silva and Liel Chatzaroni. Vivian Silva was a Canadian-born peace activist who devoted her life to the advancement of peace. Among other worthy causes, she founded Women Wage Peace. She was active, as I am, in Road to Recovery. She formed strong bonds with women in Gaza and Rahat and the West Bank. She believed firmly in a just peace, and most importantly, she believed in the basic goodness of most people. I heard her speaking on the radio on the morning of October 7. She spoke Hebrew with a Canadian accent. She had a kind voice, a decisive one. I remember that. And she wrote her family, "We may be witnessing a massacre. Without being funny, I'm telling you how much I love you all and how blessed I am to have you." A short while after that, she was dead. Liel Chatzaroni was a rosy-cheeked 12-year-old twin sister to Yanai. She was born on Kibbutz Be'eri and raised mostly by her grandfather and great-aunt. She had a big, infectious laugh and didn't much like school. She loved her friends, however, and was looking forward to her bat mitzvah year. She was taken that morning to the house of Pesia, and from there she sent a piercing message. "Please, come get us. I have to go to school tomorrow." A couple of months ago, I and the other volunteer translators were invited by the kibbutz to visit Be'eri. I had turned down other opportunities to visit. afraid of what other people call terror tourism, but this felt different. It felt personal. There was generosity in the invitation and friendship. We were met at the gate and taken around the kibbutz. It was a hot, bright day, and we chatted as we walked along shady paths, passing manicured lawns and fruit trees. A few minutes later, when we reached the destruction, there was a shift in the air and we fell silent. I leaned against a tree, its trunk riddled with bullets. I couldn't speak. I asked to see Vivian Silver's house. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I stood there by the gate, gazing at the sooty walls and broken glass, the front door flung open. At first, Vivian Silver was presumed to be a hostage in Gaza. I imagined her talking to her captors. I imagined her reasoning with them. I imagined her alive. I was also shown the house where Liel Chatzroni's grandfather lived. There's a swing that swings gently on the porch. There's a colourful mural decorating the entrance to the house. There are pegs still on clotheslines and 2 pot plants hanging from wooden rafters above the safe room. I imagined Liel and Yanai playing here or whizzing around the kibbutz in their grandfather's electric scooter. Benjamin Franklin famously said, "There is no good war and no bad peace." What has happened to these people, to this land, is incomprehensible. An entire year of destruction, or as the Hostages and Missing Families Forum wrote, Shana halcha, a year has gone, rather than Shana tova. Vivian Silver lived with the belief and hope that one day there would be peace. She knew it was impossible to keep living like this. She was right. And I want to believe that the heart is still capable of empathy for others. Tonight, I keep this woman and this girl uppermost in my mind like 2 bright and beautiful crystals. I hold them up to the light. May their memories be a blessing, and may we keep them in our hearts forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. I should say also, I should thank Joanna because it was her original idea to have these sessions right after October 7th. So thank you for that as well. Now, let me ask you to unmute. 1 second. Okay. Hanna Wacholder-Katsman is the author of the popular blog A Mother in Israel, and she recently completed an MA in Hebrew Literature and Creative Writing. Her 32-year-old son, Chaim, was killed on October the 7th in Kibbutz Cholit. She is writing a chapter in an upcoming Hebrew anthology about women's experiences during the war.
Hi, thanks very much, Julie, for inviting me. This book that is edited by Varda Silverberg, who also wrote a book about the protests. In fact, when I first called her about participating in the anthology, she said that one of the chapters that of her book that's just came out recently was based on Chaim's research. He received his doctorate in international relations, and his dissertation was about the national religious community, and he'd written quite a lot about the politics and the conservative movement in Israel, and how it's tied in with the National Religious Party, the Religious Zionist Party. Okay, so this essay that I'm writing, the book is called Harakut Sheba Barzel. It's about women. It's in Hebrew originally. The book will come out in Hebrew, and I'm writing in Hebrew. So this is definitely a work in progress. It hasn't been submitted, and I did the self-translation very recently for this evening. It's really a memoir, and about this year of mourning from my point of view. It's more or less chronological with the dates, and so here we go. 27, excuse me, 27 Tishrei. It's in the middle. I skipped the introduction. I expect the shiva to be crowded with 7 mourners, 2 parents and 5 children. I understand early on that Chaim's death isn't only a personal and family tragedy, but a public national one. People want to be part of it. It seems to me that the people with the least connection to Chaim or our family tend to be the most overwrought, so that I often find myself comforting them. After hints don't work, I place my hand on the leg of a visitor from abroad and ask her to vacate the seat on my left, the prime location next to my good ear, so that others can have a turn. One Haredi man comes in off the street. He wants the attention of the crowded room to say a Dvar Torah. My son says, "You can tell it to me." 1 Cheshvan. A tall man in uniform with red hair and a beard stands in front of me. He says he's from the army rabbinate and helped prepare Chaim's body for burial. He described Chaim's shock of curly hair and says that his face was undamaged, his expression relaxed. I don't believe him about the expression because he would say that no matter what. Well, maybe I can believe him. Why not? I recall how just before the funeral, in the small office next to the hall, the body was wheeled in. A man from the Chevra Kadisha, the burial society, recommended that we not remove the wrapping covering Chaim's face because of the amount of time that had passed. I did not look. I turned and left the room. Immediately, a crowd of people surrounded me. 7 Cheshvan. Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the new month, fell in the middle of the Shiva, transitioning from Tishrei, a month rich in holidays, to Cheshvan. In elementary school, I learned the month is called Mar Cheshvan, or Bitter Cheshvan, because it has no holidays. I think the real reason is that Mar was an alternative Babylonian name. The month is bitter for me for obvious reasons, but it is also sweet. And because my daughter and her 2 small children are living with me while her husband is serving in the reserves. At night, when the toddler isn't letting the 3-year-old go to sleep, I push him in the heavy stroller on the wet streets. One time, we stop in the dark park to watch a basketball game. At home, he starts to crawl over to me and signals by closing his little fist that he wants to be picked up. For these weeks, I have become the second parent. 10 Cheshvan. 2 weeks after the Shiva, I meet with my psychologist. I have been with her for 6 years while getting up the courage to leave my marriage in February of 2023. A few months later, she allowed me to graduate from her care. My life was stable. I worked. I had easily adjusted to a new neighborhood and community. In August, I traveled to Alaska with my sister and visited our 95-year-old uncle Adolf near San Francisco. When I returned, I frantically finished my final project for my MA and turned it in on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Chaim returned from India in the days before Yom Kippur. He came to Jerusalem on his way south to pick up his 1999 Toyota Corolla that he had lent me. "Thanks for taking care of it," he said. He checked out my balcony for gardening and promised to spend the night on the days he taught in Jerusalem. The psychologist asked me what I think about when I'm trying to fall asleep. I have a history of insomnia. I reply that I fall asleep immediately, but wake up early. "What is the first thing that you think about in the morning?" She asks me. I know exactly and in this order. Chaim is dead. Tova is here with the children. We are at war. And we are at war and the country has gone to shit. Since I am up so early, I pull out on a skirt and over leggings and walk to the synagogue to say Kaddish. Then I come home and help my daughter give the children breakfast. I can't connect to the Kaddish prayer, even though my eyes well up when I say the word Chaim. I don't miss it when it's over. 1 Adar, first Adar. As a child, I would frequently burst into tears, sometimes multiple times a day. I was embarrassed by every minor insult or criticism, real or imagined. On top of that, I was ashamed of my embarrassment. The shame accompanies me for as long as I can remember. Shame at being a girl, at having the body of a girl. Ashamed at being the daughter of refugee immigrants who did not know how to teach me the right codes to survive in American society. I made great efforts to hide the shame, but it doesn't always work. After Chaim was killed, I learned to live with tears, to let them flow. 18 Adar, to Adar. I signed up to attend a book launch because I know some of the speakers. I find a friend to come with me. When I first moved to Jerusalem, I often went to cultural events by myself. But since Chaim was killed, I feel I need protection, like I'm back in high school. I have a group of supportive friends who provide not only company, but also serve as a kind of emotional bodyguard. The publicist notices my name on the registration list and calls me to ask if I will also speak. I have become a celebrity. When they call on me, I stand in front of the room. I speak and cry and speak. I am not ashamed. The wound of loss weighs on my heart like a stone. Sometimes it is small, sometimes heavy. I can't put it down. Sometimes it comforts me. Once, during a guided meditation, the stone took me on a walk in nature with Chaim. Then the stone was light. Then the stone was light and skipped along the path beside us. But sometimes the stone expands and pushes on my heart, my lungs. It travels up my trachea, rolls along my throat, up through my face to my eyes. The stone pushes out the tears from my tear ducts where they leave tracks on my face. And after the tears stop, the stone has become smaller. Sometimes the grief is a thick wall of stone. There is no way except through. Every tear narrows the wall in an insignificant amount, like seawater erodes a mountain. I allow the tears to do their work. Sometime, someday, the mourning will end, the weeping will abate. The wall will crumble and the pieces scatter, but the small stone will remain. It's hard to get used to the way people relate to me. It falls somewhere between admiration and avoidance. When I walk into a room, the tone changes. People look my way, their conversations falter. I notice and my body responds. Sometimes tears well up. I've always wondered about the bereaved parents I have known. I saw them running projects and speaking clearly and forcefully, but this was later. I did not see them falling apart. I know that people are watching me, talking about me. People speak about me behind my back, but I feel it is kind. When someone mocks an email I sent, it takes a moment to identify the unfamiliar tone. Since the disaster, people don't mock me and barely criticize me. I have immunity. I wonder when it will wear off. I still need it, though.
Are you done? Huh? Yeah.
Finished.
Are you finished? Okay. I didn't want to interrupt. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Hadassa, let me unmute you. Hadassa Tal, laureate of the coveted Leah Goldberg Poetry Award, has authored 7 poetry collections in Israel. And I should also, are you going to read the English or Joanna can read the English?
Hello, everyone. Sorry, but I'm shivering after Hanna. And all I want to do is just to hug her and cry with her. few years ago, we lost our daughter, Maya. In few hours, she was gone. From the most beautiful, healthy, mighty young woman, she was gone. For 2.5 years, I couldn't write even one word. I didn't believe in words. Prayers were the last thing that I wanted to hear. The only thing I could do was crying and watering our little garden, working in the ground and asking nature, asking the ground, how can you have so much grief in life, so much winter, so much loss, so much death, and bloom again and bring so much beauty again to life? Please teach me. For 2.5 years, I was digging in the ground. And then after 2.5 years, in 1 month, the whole book of poetry was written to Maya, actually asking myself, how can I regain a second innocence? Because I need an innocence in order to believe back in life, in the beauty of life, in the benevolence of life. The book is built from fragments, and the fragments are part of a whole, like I feel that life is. The rabbi from Kotsk said, "En shalem kelef shavur." There is nothing whole like a broken heart. And it's not a metaphor, it's something real. So we'll read me and Joanna, and I also feel so blessed to have Joanna in my life, because she took this poetry that is written in so many layers in Hebrew and gave it a new birth in English. So we'll share this with you now. The book is called Ishon Einech, which you cannot translate because Einech in Hebrew is, I wrote it with Aleph, which means something that is lost. But the idiom is Ishon Einech, which is the eyeball. פירורים. בצעיף, מפני שקריר לפנות ערב, בעיקר על חוף הים. השמלה לא רכוסה, רק פרופה בסיכת ירח בדיוק באמצע החזה. מניפה זרועות, מסגירה אותם לשכפים, חומקת בין המזחים, רצה ברציפי אבן, רודפת אותך. המים נחו, כשאיילת השחר ונערה צנחו לכל עבר באוויר.
Crumbs. With a scarf, because it grows cold at dusk, especially on the beach, dress unbuttoned, held by a moon-shaped pin precisely in the middle of the chest, raising arms, exposing them to the seagulls, slipping away between piers, running along stone platforms, chasing you, the water resting as the morning star and a girl fall, scattering through the air.
את יודעת, המוות אינו קיים, אמרה. הנשמה לא מתה ולא נולדת. מפתח הלב, כלוב הצלעות, החיים שלפני ואחרי, הכל אחד. כשפתאום פסעה פסיעה ועצרה, אין טעם לחפש את הפיתול שבו הפכה החמנית לשמש.
There's no death, she said. The spirit doesn't die, is not born. The sternum, a cage of ribs. Life before and after, all is one. She paced a pace away, she paused. No point in looking for the twist in which sunflower becomes sun.
בתוך אישון עינך אני בבואה. האור הפניני שנופל דק. זו את. מלבד הכל, כלום לא השתנה.
Within the whirlpool of your loss, I'm a reflection. This pearl of light that falls is you. Apart from everything, nothing has changed.
באילו מילים, באילו שתיקות לומר, לא. הכאב לא זז. זורם מחוץ לזמן. אוספת את כל הכבר לא. כבר לא לנשוף על סביונים. כבר לא השזיפים סמוקים לארוחה, סנטה רוזה. כבר לא הטעם הנימוח של אגוז החורף. הארמונים שנגסנו, צהריים ובוקר, נגסנו עם לילה, נגסנו ונגסנו, כל פעם שעטלפים עפו דרומה, מרעידים.
Santa Rosa. With which word, which silence can I say no? Pain is nailed, flowing outside of time, gathering all the no mores. No more inhaling dandelions, no more plums blushing at lunch, no more winter chestnuts on the palate. We bit into them at night, we bit and bit, each time the bats flew south, reverberating.
כשהמילה הייתה שיבולת, הייתה גוף, הייתה ילדה רצה בשדות, חפה ממילים.
Once the word was an ear of corn, was a body, was a girl running in a field, innocent of words. Thank you very much. And this is the book in English. Thank you, Hadassa, and everybody for listening.
Thank you both. Thank you both. Okay. Now I would like to introduce our next reader. Hanna Yerushalmi from Annapolis, Maryland, is a rabbi and couples therapist and the author of 2 books of poetry, Strip of Land and October Shiva. Tell me when you want me to share the screen.
Yeah, you can share the screen.
Okay.
This poem is dedicated to the Siman Tov family, Yonatan, Tamar, and their children, Shachar, Arbel, and Omer, and the Kutz family, Aviv, Livnat, and their children, Rotem, Yonatan, and Yiftach. There was laughter. We were a family, 2 children, 2 parents, and 3 children. We knew how to laugh together and how to share a challah. We didn't realize we also knew how to scream with terror. We can't tell the story of our end, but it happened in one shocking instant. We died together by force, and that is how we will forever be remembered. But we would much rather be remembered for how we laughed together. Saving universes. As Shabbat began, the ministering angel called out to a man on his way home. Shabbat Shalom, how are you? The man looked surprised. Shabbat Shalom, today I am proud, but also I feel so much despair. Tell me more, the angel said. The man's rich voice boasted. Today I am proud because my daughter is a soldier, and she is one of the many who operate the Iron Dome, saving us from so much death and destruction. Then his voice became low. Today I also despair, because despite my best efforts to teach her peace, she has seen nation lift up sword against another nation, and sadly, she has also learned war. My friend, you are missing something, the angel pointed out. What can it be? The man said. There's no going back once you learn the lessons of war. Ah, the angel taught him. Just think about it. Every time she saves a single life, it is as if she has saved the entire universe. Imagine how many universes she has saved. Isn't this the greatest teaching of all? And this last one I wrote on a piece of paper about a chance encounter I had with a soldier as I was returning from Jerusalem back to Tel Aviv. A prayer for seeing a soldier. At the corner of Kaplan and Ibn Gabirol, you stand next to me, waiting to cross. A tower of olive with dust on your boots, and I barely subdue a primal urge to wrap my arms around you. Soldier, what can I say to you? For centuries, we had no defenders, just amulets and allies. And now, your body is but one brick in a massive wall of protection. There is a prayer for seeing a rainbow, but what is the prayer for seeing a soldier?
Yeah. Carolyn Goldberg Igra is an art historian with a passion for writing. In addition to art historical research-based articles and books, she has published 2 novels and many works of creative nonfiction.
So this piece I wrote about a month and a half ago, mid-August, and it's just been accepted for publication at PB Daily, the Jewish Book Council's periodical. It's called Adrift. The temperature was high, the skin on my arms sticky. I was on a boat, sailing out in the open, but it felt like there was no air. Embarking on a 3-hour cruise off the coast of Israel had seemed safer before the killing of Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran and the threat of an Iranian counterattack. It's kind of ironic at the moment. Now the whole country was bracing itself, holding its breath. The 10 women in my Tel Aviv-based book group had jointly decided to screw it all and go through with the excursion planned months earlier. But that didn't mean we weren't afraid. Were we always going to be afraid? Were we ever not? I'd landed back in Israel just the day before after a long summer in the States and was exhausted. Suffering from jet lag, I felt disoriented and more than a little nauseated. But there was the coastline of Israel, the view I so welcomed from 8,000 feet as I entered Israeli airspace at every homecoming. We'd sailed out of the Herzliya Marina, a jumble of masts, sails, and cafes. To the south, Tel Aviv stretched out long and proud, the silvery lights from the buildings hugging the beach shimmering at this hour before ending at the minarets of Yafo. Straight behind us, due west, was the setting sun. That gorgeous ball of orange I'd watched emerge from the ocean earlier in the morning from a house on the Jersey shore just the day before. The wonder of the globe, where I could watch the sun rise on one side, then set on the other within 24 hours, was tarnished today by an enormous sense of sadness mixed with fear. What lay ahead? What about these? Jay pointed to a plastic box of what looked like pastries. Another reached out to open it. They're savory. They have spinach inside. Jay popped one in her mouth. Yes, definitely not sweet. Good. They go perfectly with the arak. Everyone laughed. Upon stepping onto the boat, we'd been greeted with a homemade cocktail made from the licorice-flavored liqueur and lemonade. Served straight up from a squeegee bottle, like those usually lodged on the stem of a road bike, each sip was accompanied by the unmistakable taste of plastic. No one cared. There wasn't one person there who didn't want to get slightly inebriated. Was there a better way to endure this period? Those missiles fell into the sea. All eyes turned to M, and the comforting cacophony of conversation evaporated. Just days earlier, 2 missiles had been shot toward Tel Aviv from Gaza. The red alert had sounded, and 500,000 citizens had scuttled into the nearest shelter. It was a relief to hear that, falling into the water, they hadn't done any damage. The silence between us stretched on until someone laughed, somewhat forcibly. Well, that was then. Best insurance it won't happen tonight. Another round of laughter, this time even more nervous in tone. M got up from the table and headed around the cabin toward the bow of the boat, where there was a better view of the setting sun. The repartee around the table continued. Jay pointed at the crackers. I'll take one of those. They're so thin. They're supposedly healthy. Healthy? Well, low calorie. Jay smiled and reached back down to take a whole handful. That's good enough for me. Talking about food, suggesting something as mundane as dieting, was like taking shelter. This was territory most of us recognized and could retreat to in times of need. It was a relief from the mentions of the war. No one wanted to talk about that. We didn't need to. It was there, every moment. And instead of undermining the pleasure of the evening, the underlying tension of the potential dangers and the mounting losses made that time spent together on a boat out in the Mediterranean watching the sunset that much sweeter. I pushed aside my fatigue as I watched the choppy waves break along the side of the boat. I'd rest when I was dead, and that wasn't going to be today. All that counted now was being part of a unified effort to find moments of happiness. I took another sip of my plasticky drink. A few more of us made our way to the bow of the boat and sat down. And there we had an unobstructed view of the sunset. From there, we could contemplate the end of one day and the promise of another. We dangled our legs and let ourselves drift. Thank you.
Spotlight. Next speaker. Hi, Ephrat. Ephrat is a professor of social work, specializing in arts and social work at Ben Gurion University. Late in life, she did an MA in creative writing at Bar-Ilan and is attempting in between things to write a novel.
Hello, folks. Maybe in continuation of Hanna Yerushalmi's poems, who spoke about the voice of soldiers. So I'm going to bring some poems of soldiers. And I want to show how creative writing has been such a good tool for combat soldiers right now. Many of my university students in the South have been in combat duty for months at a time, missing studies and away from home. The MA students are often married. This means their wives and children are alone for months and they return sporadically. We found in a former research paper that the transitions between home and the war were really, really hard for these students. Shifting from the fight or flight fighting mode back home to their young families feels very difficult. These are quotes of soldiers. Sometimes I notice when I return is that I feel difficulty in connecting to a reality that is full of people who can't understand what happened to me, and it makes you feel very alone. I find myself lots of times trying to explain what is happening to me, but it doesn't reach the other side. I know that no one will understand me. I start to think it's better not to try to explain. I don't include her, my wife, in what happened. I don't want to dirty her with sad and disgusting experiences. And I don't want her to start imagining traumatic experiences next time I'm called up. This way, I protect her, but it leaves us both alone. So in light of the findings of this research, I thought that creative writing groups would be a really good thing for soldiers. And I turned to a professor of war literature and to a social worker, an army social worker, and we sent out an invitation just to join. We found some money and we sent out an invitation to join creative writing groups. And within one night, 90 students who were combat soldiers in reserve duty asked to join these groups. So now we have 90 students in these groups. And it seems that the writing, and you know this because you're all interested in writing, that's why you're here. It seems that something about the creative writing is hugely, hugely helpful to find the words to bridge the gap that I just told you about. So I'm going to read two poems. This is two poems of the experience of coming home. And they're anonymous because I can't find the two soldiers. They've approved showing it, but I don't know if they approved my translation. They're both in Gaza now, so I can't, so there's no way. So we decided that we'll just anonymize the poems. So this is the first poem. I'm sorry that I wasn't present in your lecture today. From far away, it looked quite interesting. The problem is not in you, but I want to believe that the problem is also not in me. Sorry, I was late for our meeting. I know your time is important, and I don't have an excuse, really. I knew I would be late while sitting on the sofa at home. Sorry that I shouted at you when you said that joke about Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis is a place by Gaza. It was quite a funny joke. My friends fighting there would have liked it, and with them, I would also have laughed at it. And this is a poem about, having a small visit at home in between fighting. When we came into your home, and after the best shower of my life, I was still dirty. The shampoo smell did not hide what had stuck onto us. We, the soldiers, sat on your sofa like a stain, shut inwards, strangers bringing the news that the war is real. We are like people who've climbed out of the television into your front room. We are a clanging sound in a sad song. We're different, we're dirty. On the way back to Gaza, we ate a mediocre shawarma. So we can see how important it is for us to listen to these voices of the soldiers that are not necessarily heroic stories, but it's their genuine, real experience. And it's hard for us to listen to these experiences, but we need to, I strongly, strongly believe that we need to listen to them. And I'm so glad that these groups are continuing and we have more and more people writing in them. And thank you for listening to me, or to them through me. So, yeah, I just unshare.
Okay.
If anyone wants to, sorry, excuse me. One last thing, we did some, we asked the soldiers how this creative writing helps them. This is what the soldiers said. How will these thoughts be on paper? I fear meeting them. I fear meeting my own thoughts, in other words. It's still hard to work on them. It makes me happy. It helps me. But without the group, I won't do it. I want to, but I can't. The feeling that only other soldiers understand what happens in combat. It's just creative writing. No one judges me on a literary level, and the directives help to get me started. And it takes a huge weight to get these thoughts out. It's so important, and it helped me a lot. I was in a very bad place emotionally, and I felt understood. There are people who want to hear. I was so excited. I can talk about these things, and everyone here understands. They were in the same situation. You choose to come. You decide what to write. You hear some literature about things you feel inside. And this gives you control back. So just to show you the power of creative writing for these soldiers. And if anyone's interested in articles about this, then I can send you, of course. And thank you so much for listening, not to me, but to the soldiers.
Thank you, Ephrat. So I was so happy to hear that you had done this, taken this initiative when I met you, I think in Bar Ilan in June. And would love to have some of the soldiers present next time if they're feeling up to it.
We hope that soon we'll have a publication and will be.
Yeah, amen, yep.
Amen.
I'm just gonna, before we move on to the prayer section, I know it's already been an hour. I wanted to share one more poem that I heard on Yom HaZikaron this year. I had never heard it before. It's by Chaim Guri, called Behit Kadesh. And despite my best efforts, I still did not find any information about the poem when he wrote it, nor did I find a translation. So, as a little literary project for myself, I tried to translate it, and thank you, Joanna, for helping me on some of the things that I didn't get right. So my first time I've translated something, and there it goes. Okay, and thank you to Sagiv, the principal of my kids' school, for reading this on Yom HaZikaron. That's when I first heard it. להתקדש, לחיות עם הצער, עם פני רעים הנשמרים, בנעורי הנצח של התמונות, עם פני בנים, נכדים ונינים, הממשיכים להילחם בארץ הזאת, היפה להורגים. לחיות עם מלחמת העצמאות הנמשכת, עם תחושת הצדק המפעמת בלב הצבא הזה, אשר להאמין המחתרת, אשר נוצר בסערת הקרב, לחיות כנרדף בעמים, אשר כבש את חירותו, אשר גאל את אדמתו השדודה. לחיות עם הבדידות המראה, עם השנאה שוצפת, עם דרשות הסתה, עם הטרור הנמשך, עם העצמים החשודים, עם סכנת הצבאות המתעצמים מעבר. לחיות, לא להתייאש, לא להתפאר, לא להתפתות, לחיות ולהאמין, לחיות בכבוד, לחיות ולעשות למען עתיד אחר במזרח, למען ברית עמי בני שם שתיכרת בבוא יום. לחיות ללא אשליה, לחיות ללא עייפות, ללא ויתור על העיקר, לחיות להתעצם, לחיות ולהמשיך לחיות ולהאמין, לחיות ולבנות את הארץ הזאת, לחיות ולעלות, לחיות ולהעלות, לחיות עם סבלנותה של אומה בת אלפי שנים, עם התלהבותה הקנאית של אומה צעירה הנוצרת על האבנים, לחיות למרות הכל, לחיות ולבנות את קשרי השלום, לחיות ולכונן בארץ ישראל את החברה החדשה, את חברת הצדק ועילוי האדם, ליצור תרבות עברית, לקדש את אוצרותיה, לקרוע את כל חלונות, את כל הטוב והיפה בתרבות האדם, לנשוך שפתיים ולחיות, לקוות ולחיות, לעבוד קשה ולהחיות, לתקן מעוות ולחיות, לפתוח לבבות, ללמוד מן הניסיון, לחיות את הרגעים הקטנים ואת השנים הגדולות, את הזוטות, את ההבלים, את התקופה הסוערת, לחיות עם הצער, לחיות עם אמונה. I should say also that Chaim Guri was an Israeli poet, novelist, journalist, and documentary filmmaker, and he lived between 1923 and 2018. Okay. So in English, in consecration, to live with the sorrow, with the faces of people preserved, eternally youthful in pictures, with the faces of sons and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who continue to fight in this land that is tired of killing, to live with a continual war of independence, with a feeling of justice throbbing in the heart of this army that rose up from the underground, that was created in the storm of the battle, to live as a persecuted nation who conquered its own freedom, who redeemed its stolen land, to live with the bitter isolation, with the overflowing hatred, with inciting sermons, with the continuing terror, with the suspicious objects, with the danger of armies growing in and strength from beyond, to live not to despair, not to become ugly, not to give in, to live and to believe, to live and to hope, to live and to work for a different future in the East, for a covenant between my people, the people of Shem, who will be cut down one day, to live without illusion, to live without fatigue, without giving up on the central thing, to live and to become mighty, to live and to continue to live and to believe, to live and to build this land, to live and to rise, to live and to raise up, to live with the patience of a nation of thousands of years, with the envious exuberance of a young nation created on stone, to live despite it all, to live and build bridges of peace, to live and to establish in the land of Israel a new society, a society that is righteous and elevates human dignity, to create a Hebrew culture, to consecrate its treasures, to fling open the windows to all that is good and all the beauty in human culture, to bite our lips and live, to hope and to be, to work hard and to revive, to repair distortion and to live, to open hearts, to learn from experience, to live for the small moments and the big years, the trifles, the vanities, and the tempestuous period, to live with the sorrow and to live with faith. So I really like that because of the repetition, to live, to live, to live. And I think that's what we all need to do now. I'm gonna go on now to the next part here. Thanks for bearing with us. I know it's late. Well, it's late here. And this is a prayer for captives. You'll have to bear with me again, hearing me read on the Hebrew. I'm not going to read it in English, but you can follow along. Mishaberach avotenu b'imotenu Avraham v'Sara Yitzchak v'Rivka Yaakov Leah v'Rachel v'et lochamenu Yehoshua David v'Yehuda Dvorah Yael v'Yehudit hu yevarech et shvuyei v'nedarei tzal v'ezrachim v'ezrachiyot hachatufim v'chטופות הנתונים והנתונות בשביה ובצרה יהי רצון לפניך אדוני צבאות שתפדה נפשם משבי ותחזירם במהרה לארצם ומשפחתם ולביתם בריאים ושלמים בגופם ובנפשם ותיתן תבונה בלב הערבים ובשחרורם ותיתן רחמים בלב שבוריהם וקוים בהם הכתוב כל ברמה נשמע נהי בכי תמרורים רחל מבכה על בניה מעניה להנחם על בניה כי איננו כה אמר אדוני מנעי קולך מבכי ועינך מדמעה כי יש שכר לפעולתך נאום אדוני ושבו מארץ אויב ויש תקווה לאחריתך נאום אדוני ושבו בנים ובנות לגבולם. And that is from Sefer Yirmiyahu. Okay, two more. This is a Mishaberach for Tzahal, for the soldiers protecting us. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Yivarech et Chayalei v'Chayalot tzva hagana l'Yisrael b'omdim u'mishmar atzenu v'arei Eloheinu migvul Lebanon ad midbar Mitzrayim u'min hayam hagadol ad lavo ha'arava v'yavasha ba'avir u'bayam ten Adonai et oivenu hakamim aleinu ניגפים לפניהם, הקדוש ברוך הוא ישמור ויציל את חיילינו מכל צרה וצוקה, מכל נגע מחלה, ישלח ברכה והצלחה בכל מעשה ידיהם, דבר שונאינו תחתיהם ויעטרם בכתר ישועה ובעטרת ניצחון, ויקוים בהם כתוב כי אדוני אלוהיכם ההולך עמכם יילחם לכם עם אויביכם להושיע אתכם ונאמר אמן. And last but not least, תפילה לשלום המדינה. אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחת גאולתנו, הגן עליה בעברת חסדיה, ופוס עליה סוכת שלומך, ושלח אורך ועמיתך לראשיה, שרה ויועציה, ותקנם בעצה טובה מלפניך, חזק את ידי מגני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם אלוהינו ישועה, ועטרת ניצחון תעטרם, ונתת שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם ליושביה. ואת אחינו כל בית ישראל פקודנה בכל ארצות פזוריהם, תוליכם מהרה קוממיות לציון עירך ובירושלים משכן שמך, ככתוב בתורת משה עבדך, אם יהיה נדחך בקצה השמיים, משם יקבצך אדוני אלוהיך ומשם ייקחך, והביאך אדוני אלוהיך אל הארץ אשר ירשו אבותיך וירשת והציבך והרבך מאבותיך. ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך ולשמור את כל דברי תורתך, ושלח לנו מהרה בן דוד משיח צדקך, לפדות ממך כקץ ישועתך. הופע בהדר גאון עוזך על כל יושבי תבל ארצך, ויאמר כל אשר נשמע באבו, אדוני אלוהי ישראל מלך מלכותו בכל משלה, אמן. סלע. Okay. So I'm gonna take the spotlight off of me. How do I do that? The spotlight. Okay, now we're all here together. If anyone would like to say anything, asked to be unmuted, just raise your hand or put it in the chat and I'll try to unmute. Thank you for everyone for writing all your comments in the chat. I'm going to save those. And thank you very much to Joanna and Hanna and Hadassa and Ephrat and Carolyn and Yonatan. Some of, did I miss anyone? If not, a few of the people who presented had other engagements, so they couldn't stay on for the whole time. So thank you, everyone. I'm just gonna scroll over. Yes. May memories be a blessing, everyone. Just looking at chat. I'm gonna put, of course, all the links to buy everyone's books in the email, in the thank you email tomorrow, along with the recording. That's it, everyone. Thank you. Besorot Tovot. Maybe have good news soon. See our hostages returned home soon, and into the fighting soon. So.
Thank you, Julie, for organizing such an amazing, amazing meeting.
Thank you all for coming. And Shana Tova, Shana Yoter Tova.